Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay Police and the OPP had their full tactical units out in force today after a shooting in the intercity area sent one person to hospital with serious injuries.
It led to an OPP search for an armed suspect in the village of Herkett, where an arrest was eventually made. Vasilios Bellos has the details.
This incident started with Thunder Bay Police responding to a shooting on Forest Street just before 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, with officers blocking off a significant portion of the street. One man was taken to hospital, though his condition is currently unknown. Inspector Ryan Gibson provided some details about the shooting.
We were able to establish a scene and we've since cleared the house. I can tell you that one person's been taken to hospital with injuries consistent with gunshot wounds. At this time, the investigation's in its early stages, so it's ongoing. Our criminal investigations branch is now following up.
The shooting no doubt shocked the neighborhood, which is not often on police radar, though investigator Gibson stressed that these acts can happen anywhere.
Sometimes bad things happen in good areas, and this is one of those things. It's a very safe area. I can't say enough about it. Well kept. All the homes very nice, good people down here. It's just an unfortunate series of events that have occurred today.
The shooting led to OPP warning people in the Herkett area that they were searching for an armed person connected with the shooting in Thunder Bay. Traffic on the highway between Dorian and Red Rock was backed up for miles as more than a dozen OPP cruisers raced to the area. A low-pass surveillance plane and helicopter were also involved in the search. An update was provided later in the afternoon that OPP had arrested the individual, but no other information will be provided, as the province's Special Investigations Unit has been called in to look at the police's actions with this incident. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
The blended investigation team that was formed as a result of the OIPRD probe into systemic racism within the Thunder Bay Police Force is now calling for another 14 Indigenous deaths in the city to be reinvestigated. The Broken Trust report was released by former OIPRD Director Jerry McNeely in December of 2018. It originally called for the reinvestigation of 9 First Nations deaths after the original city police probes were found to be substandard or drew premature conclusions. The blended team of investigators will soon release its update on those 9 cases, and it's also highlighted 14 other sudden deaths of Indigenous people over the last 2 decades that should be reinvestigated as well. The team says even more new probes could be added after a closer look at incidents of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Thunder Bay.
The trial of Musab Saboon and David Huey is nearing its conclusion at the Thunder Bay Courthouse. The pair have pled not guilty to first-degree murder and kidnapping in the shooting death of 40-year-old Lee Kyoto in February of 2019. Today, the defense called its one and only witness to the stand. City Police Sergeant Sean Whipple was the case manager for the Kyoto murder file. Lawyers for Saboon and Huey challenged Whipple on the lack of physical evidence connecting their clients to the murder. Whipple pointed out that police do have a video of a confrontation between Saboon and Kyoto at a local bowling alley, video of a car stopping on Mission Island a short time later, and testimony from Marshal Hardy Fox that he drove Saboon, Huey, and Kyoto to the place the body was found and heard the gunshot before he drove the two back to the city. The trial wraps up tomorrow morning with closing arguments from the defense and the Crown.
Officials with the regional hospital are considering a number of ways to improve long ambulance wait times at the emergency department. The delays have forced paramedics to wait at the hospital's offloading area for up to 8 hours in some cases. EMS officials say it's never been as bad as this. The hospital's executive VP of Patient Experience, Adam Vanette, agrees this isn't the norm and confirms the situation has gotten worse in recent weeks. The hospital prioritizes patients based on a standardized triage system. Talks are now underway between the hospital and EMS to implement a fit-to-sit program, allowing more patients to leave ambulances and go to the ER waiting room.
We have seen a higher demand of EMS usage, and anywhere between 50 and 60 patients through EMS are seen through our emergency department doors daily. So we are actively looking to expand the offload nurse from 10 at night to 2 in the morning to help compensate with some of these delays.
Vanette is confident a fit-to-sit program can be implemented in short order.
The number of COVID-19 patients at the Regional Health Sciences Centre is slightly lower today. There are now 28 COVID patients, down from 29 yesterday, and the number of ICU patients has dipped from 9 to 8. The overall hospital occupancy stands at 105%. The ICU occupancy has risen to nearly 96%. Meanwhile, the number of weekly COVID-19 vaccines administered in the Thunder Bay district has fallen below 1,000 for the first time. There were just 857 shots given out last week. According to the Ministry of Health, 89% of people across the district aged 5 and up have received at least 1 dose, and 85% have received at least 2 doses.
Ontario's education minister says the government isn't yet ready to remove masks in schools.
We are very committed to keeping the school system as safe as possible. We have implemented a very rigorous, comprehensive program that has reduced risk, and we're so excited and proud that every child in Ontario, 2 million kids today, are learning in person with their peers, with their educators. We are committed to gradually lifting measures with the full support and following the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. We're all committed to doing that, and we'll do so in lockstep with the advice of the Chief Medical Officer.
Stephen Lecce says the measures in schools will be lifted gradually over time. He says 73,000 HEPA units are now in schools where there isn't a mechanical ventilation system, and an additional 49,000 are being sent to classrooms this month and into April.
It's been more than a month since Premier Doug Ford proclaimed that Ontario was, quote, very, very close to reaching a deal to sign on the federal childcare plan. That would bring the cost of daycare to just $10 by 2026. But Ontario is still the only province that hasn't struck a deal with Ottawa. Colin DeMello reports.
After months of bargaining, the negotiations over $10 a day childcare seems to have entered a new phase. The Ford government finally handed over an action plan, telling the federal government just how Ontario would reduce fees and increase daycare spaces.
All documents, all details, all plans requested by the federal government are with them. We look forward to getting this deal as soon as possible to save families money.
The documents mean the two sides can finally talk specifics, giving the Premier renewed confidence.
You know, I've said day after day, we were very, very close to getting a deal. We are very, very close to getting a deal.
That deal could actually materialize in the matter of weeks. Federal sources say when other provinces handed over their action plans, it took roughly 3 weeks to sign on the dotted line. But time is also ticking. Ottawa has allocated $10.2 billion to Ontario for childcare. $1 billion of that has to be spent in this fiscal year, which ends on March 31st. Other political parties are accusing the Ford government of dragging its feet.
Ontario, the largest province in our country with the highest childcare fees, is not able to get a deal while every single other province has.
And what exactly happens when a deal is actually signed? Other provinces retroactively lowered their daycare fees. The Ontario Liberals say parents deserve a rebate of up to $2,700.
Because we don't believe that Ontario families should have to suffer because Doug Ford just hasn't gotten a deal done.
While the Ford government is tight-lipped on the details, the Premier says it will happen.
We're going to get this deal, and just stay tuned, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later.
Leaving families wondering how long before they can see the savings.
That was CTV's Colin DeMello. Thunder Bay City Council has now stated its intention to host Ukrainian refugees and is asking the federal government to declare the city an ideal location for settlement. Locals working to put supports in place for possible refugees appreciate the help and say they now just need changes to Canada's policy to take in those fleeing to safety. Corey Nordstrom has more.
This is simply about positioning our community as a really natural fit for Ukrainian resettlement if it comes to that.
The motion from Mayor Bill Morrow was passed unanimously to welcome those fleeing conflict in Ukraine and request that Thunder Bay be deemed an ideal location.
The systems are in place. The resolution is very important and it's much appreciated.
Walter Woda, the president of the Thunder Bay League of Ukrainian Canadians, says their chapter put a call to the community asking for housing assistance, with 20 people coming forward in the first 24 hours.
There is a pretty strong Ukrainian community, but it's beyond that. This is a real humanitarian effort that needs to be supported, and we're already feeling that support from the the goodwill of Thunder Bay residents.
We have a good group of landlords and others that we work with all of the time for all refugees arriving in the city. So I think there is availability that we wouldn't have to rely on DSAB if we needed to at all.
Much of the refugee work will be coordinated by Thunder Bay's Multicultural Association. Executive Director Kathy Woodbeck believes the federal government's immigration policies will likely need to loosen before Ukrainians would come to the lakehead, and right now it's still early in the process.
People are waiting to see what's going to happen in their home country. They're not ready to flee to a distance as far as Canada until they know what's going to happen, if they can go back.
Dougal Media's efforts to contact Canada's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship offices have went unanswered. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Meanwhile, City Council also discussed a new household composting initiative last night. A local green bin program is mandatory by 2025, and city staff presented an update of their efforts to prepare for organic waste collection. The city is being mandated by the province to implement the green bin program for single-family homes in the city's urban areas. And although it's not required, city staffers say they will look to serve multi-residential units as well, noting it's something they feel they should do. Also required is the development of a processing solution such as a compost facility. Administration will return a report to council in the coming months to decide on a preferred system, but it won't look like the same as the current garbage and recycling collections.
It looked like a big bin. There was also talk about plant material, plants, leaves, yard waste. Are we anticipating this to be an automatic collection system?
You are correct that even with the size of that bin, they're sometimes exceeding the municipal weight lift restrictions, and so we would typically pick that up with what's called a lift assist on the side of the truck. But we will also be including recommendations in the report that will deal with fully automated cart collection.
We haven't seen the CLE in nearly 3 years due to the pandemic, but officials with the Canadian Lakehead exhibition are making plans to bring back all the rides this August, along with some Canadian classic rock legends on the main stage. Mitchell Ringos has more.
After a 2-year unplanned hiatus, CLE officials are planning to bring back the popular family fair running from August 10th to 14th. CLE President Al Law says their gross revenues took a beating in 2020 and 2021 as the fair is their biggest money maker, usually seeing nearly 60,000 people over 5 days. Law says there is a lot of work left to plan for the fair, including arrangements for advanced ticket sales. But he's feeling very positive about the opportunity to hold a successful fair once again.
Well, I think the whole board of directors and CLE staff, they're all positive about it. It's just that you have to be as positive as possible, keep things going, and things will work out.
Law says the fair will also see the return of the popular concert stage, which draws several thousand people to the fairgrounds each night. The CLE has booked 4 big-name classic rock acts that will bring back memories for local fans.
We have 4 major bands booked. The first one, I believe, starting off would be Kim Mitchell, and then Trooper, Honeymoon Suite, and Streetheart.
Law says they have also spoken to the Midway operator who provides the rides and entertainment. The CLE will also be following up with vendors and other amenities that go into the Coliseum and other buildings, which Law says is just the beginning of what needs to get done.
We hire a security firm, then you hire an organization to do all the cleaning. We work with the health unit in regards to what parameters are going to be set. Do we go back to masks? How does the large crowds, how's that handled? Do you need disinfectant? So there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Law says they're also looking at having a home and garden type show in the fall since they couldn't host it the past few springs. Another positive sign of a turnaround for the CLE this year is the return of shags and other social events, as they have 7 scheduled for the Heritage Building in April, and the CLE grounds will also pay host to the Great Benjamin Circus starting on April 28th. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
The Cam River Fighting Walleye faced some fierce competition yesterday afternoon. The SIJHL team faced off against the grade 4 students at Kingsway Park School in a friendly game of street hockey.
He shoots the clock, and Jesse stops it.
The home team, Kingsway Park Panthers, were the clear crowd favorites, and the kids battled enthusiastically against the more experienced Walleye. We spoke to some of the kids beforehand, and they were pretty confident about their chances of winning.
It's going to be a close game for sure, but if anything, whoever is the most puck hungry and whoever wants the most goals and the most time with the puck is going to win.
I feel like we're going to win just because we have a better team than them. What makes us a better team is because we have more players, and they're going to get really tired.
We all were one of these kids at one point, and it would have been a dream of mine for a team like this to come and play with us and kind of like spend a day with us and show us some attention. And I'm sure they love it. We love it just as much. They think we're rock stars and we like it. It's a fun time.
Kingsway principal Callie Burns said after the past 2 difficult years for the kids due to COVID restrictions, she wanted to bring something fun and inspiring to the school. Ultimately, the game ended in an 8-8 tie, and both teams had a great time.
Well, it looks like it, and good job.